Welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Max Reimer. As we pay attention to the election season, knowing that 2020 is only a year away, we also cannot forget about that there are many important elections happening in 2019 even, especially as it pertains to city government and local government. Today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine who is running for the mayor of Bloomington, Ryan Kulka. Ryan, thank you for joining the Republican Roundtable.
Thank you, Max.
So we are in basically the heat of your election season. As I mentioned before, I think a lot of people's focus is on 2020. However, your general election will happen November of this year, and your primary, the voting is already happening.
That's right.
So
it's happening fast.
Yes, and it closes in 3 weeks, and there'll be a primary date. But before we kind of dive into all of that, who are you? What do you do for a living? Why the heck are you running for mayor?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I go, and again, thanks for having me, but as far as I go, I'm a Bloomington kid, born and raised, been here my whole life. My folks built a house here off of Normandale Boulevard and 94th Street in 1985. Okay. And I grew up on the west side of Bloomington and went to Normandale Hills Elementary School all the way up through Oak Grove and Olson, and graduated in 2002 from Bloomington Jefferson High School. Okay. So
business owner?
Business owner, yes.
A few different businesses.
That's right. So I kind of cut my teeth as far as being an entrepreneur. In 2010, I started my first business in Bloomington, an entertainment company, and we do all of the music for the Twins and Timberwolves and Lynx and Vikings, as well as weddings and corporate events and stuff like that. So kind of took my passion for music, and with a business partner, formed Generation Now Entertainment, and have really grown it from there. 4 years ago, I then started a company called Social Boom, which is located right off of Old Shakopee in Normandale, and we're a digital marketing and social media company. So I love Bloomington, obviously, to have been here my whole life, and now own a home and start businesses in Bloomington as well.
What have you seen since you grew up here? You're Bloomington born, and you've started businesses here. You live here, all of that jazz. How have you kind of seen the city changed, if at all, since you were born here and grew up here? Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a great place to grow up. In my neighborhood, particularly, we were kind of the cool kid neighborhood. Okay. Just a lot of young families, a lot of kids playing outside in the yard. Flag football and baseball and street hockey and all that stuff. I've seen that kind of go away. You don't drive around the neighborhoods in Bloomington and see kids, playing with each other. I feel like, as Bloomington matures and gets older, that's one major thing that I've seen change, is that the people that live here love it so much that they stay here, but also we're not making it appealing for younger families to be moving in at the correct pace and clip. So
right, especially given the fact that we're on the border of Edina, and South Minneapolis is right around the corner, and you're starting to see, I think, a little bit of hemorrhaging of people to those places. Why the mayor thing? Yep. What prompted you to run? Was it specifically that issue? Were there other things that you were concerned about? Obviously, you have the business background, but what prompted you to jump into this particular race at this particular time?
Yep. I surround myself with a lot of people that I've talked to over the last year to 2 years about the possibility of doing this. Obviously, with Mayor Winstead stepping down this year and it becoming an open race, I felt like now was a perfect time to really get more involved and to insert myself into this race as a young professional, somebody who can relate to those people that have been here for 3 decades. Right. And I just think younger people need to get more involved in city government across the board, in every city. I think that's healthy. I think that breeds innovation, new thinking, new ideas, and kind of weeds out sort of the old traditional process and can shed new light and new perspectives on city issues that have remained stagnant, specifically in Bloomington, for a long time. So that, coupled with the fact that as far as Bloomington just being expensive, it's expensive to live here for what you get, and I think that's a big reason why young families aren't coming here. It's real easy for them to go south of the river or something like that and get a big, nice new house for their money.
Sure.
And it's very expensive to live in Bloomington, so affordable living is one major platform that I'm running on, and I have some great ideas as far as to how to make Bloomington more affordable, not only to live in, but also to operate businesses in and function in.
Now, I think we'll talk in a little bit about some of those more specific issues, but really, Ryan, that entrepreneurial mindset that you have used to start a couple of businesses in Bloomington, and then I should also mention there, you're in the alcohol business as well, which is pretty awesome. And what I wanted to ask you about specifically that mindset was, how do you think that mindset, what do you bring to the table with a business background versus, say, an opponent who might be in government their whole career or what have you? How does being a business owner and actually starting something feed into what a potential mayor might do?
That's a great question, and I think the biggest thing is people. In order to be an entrepreneur and hire employees and create jobs, you have to be a good, number one, listener, and number two, manager of people. And managing people in a business sense is one thing, but also, like I said, being a good listener and managing, their thoughts, their feelings, their insights. So I think one thing that I will bring to the table based on those skills is to open my ears and really be a listener to the people of Bloomington and the people that live here. Get a lot of input from the people in the city on important issues. Right now a big point of contention is that we feel like sometimes city council pushes large issues through very quickly without a lot of input from the citizens. So that's one. Number two, the financial management aspect of things. Obviously, to start a business from nothing and grow it to multi-millions of dollars of revenue a year is not easy. So you have to be really mindful and tactful as to where financial resources are going and at what time, and managing budgets. I think that will be crucial as far as making Bloomington, again, more affordable in the long run, with as far as budgetary and financial responsibility concerns go.
You talked specifically about the listening skill and the listening skill that you have to have as a business owner. In the short time you've been campaigning, Ryan, you've been listening to people in Bloomington. What are some kind of hot button issues that you've heard about from people that you now care about, having been more educated by them?
That's a good question too. And it's, as far as that goes, I mean, you hear about affordable living and affordable housing and things of that nature, but I think the transparency, going back to that, is a big one. People just want to feel like their input is taken into account on city issues. I hear that from pretty much everybody that I talk to. They want to be more involved, but they don't know how. Okay. So how can we form coalitions and committees to allow people to play to their strengths and be involved and get their input into what the council is discussing at city council meetings? Also, environmental. One thing I've learned a lot about recently is the paving of the river bottom trails and all of the environmental effects of that. The new water park at the Mall of America. What are the environmental ramifications of a huge, 80 million gallon water park? Where does that water come from? How is it recycled? So I'm really diving into water quality and things of that nature. Bloomington has pretty good water quality, but figuring out, what are we drinking? What's in this?
Yeah.
And I think people are really concerned about that environmental type of issues.
Isn't that interesting that it's not just about the big rhetorical environmental issues that you hear on the national media and climate change and this, that, and the other thing, but it's literally boiling down to what's going to come out of my shower in the morning.
Exactly.
Fascinating paradigm shift there. With that water park in particular, what's actually happening with that? It seems like another thing that the city council and the mayor has kind of pushed through, rubber stamped, and we don't really have any oversight into what the Mall of America can do versus what they can't do. And I'm wondering, what have you heard about that? What is your personal opinion on that? How are you going to be able to wrap your arms around an issue like that when you're mayor?
Well, I hope it's not too far down the rabbit hole, and that's the problem, is nobody really knows. Nobody really knows the status of that project. I know that it's a private project that the city is helping plan and fund, so that's a polarizing issue as well. Should we be doing that? What type of revenue will this water park bring in to our city specifically? As a lot of people know, or maybe don't know, the Mall of America is a huge tourist attraction. but we don't see a lot of revenue from that as far as the city goes.
Not as much as is always promised.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly.
It seems like every expansion that we take on, every road project, everything that is wrapped around the Mall of America, just like the Viking Stadium to a certain extent, you're promised this big ROI on everything that you build for them. But I always hesitate with that business-government relationship. You and I, when we started our businesses, we didn't seem to get any special handouts like that. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Nobody funded, our efforts.
Right.
And ultimately it's the citizens of Bloomington and the people that live here that pay for these things. And I don't think it's right that decisions are made without, consulting the populace of the city of Bloomington. I hear it's going to be fantastic as far as the breadth and the scale of the thing, but I think there's a lot of core issues there that need to be discussed. And again, I don't know if it's too far down the rabbit hole to have any effect when I become mayor, but if there is some opportunity to look at it and make it better and get more input from the citizens and the residents of Bloomington, I'm all for that.
Now, philosophically, there's a lot of people in Bloomington, and it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. It seems like this core issue of transparency, having a voice, getting a feel for what your city government is actually doing is kind of a bipartisan issue. What I'm wondering, though, is people have become cynical, it seems to me, being a resident of Bloomington over the years. Cynical to the point where they say it doesn't matter who gets elected, nothing will change. The city council will do what it wants eventually. We had an attorney in 2 months ago who talked about the collective bargain or the collective trash issue, and just how brazen the city council and the mayor, and this is a generational thing. But I'm wondering, Ryan, what reason and do you give people to say that there is a legitimate change coming with you as mayor? What can you tell people to say, hey, stop being cynical and go out and vote for me? It is going to be different.
Well, I will say that, Bloomington is a very well-run city. I love Bloomington. A lot of people that live here love Bloomington, but it's kind of been status quo for a while. We've had the same mayor for the better part of 20 years.
Right.
And Gene's done a great job on some things, and in my opinion, not a great job on some other things. But again, going back to the point of now is the time where this is going to change. Gene decided he's not going to run in this election, and so things will change now, whether it's me or somebody else who becomes mayor. So it is very important to take this opportunity as a responsible citizen of Bloomington to get out there and vote. This is the most important city election in the last 2 decades.
Yeah, so, literally. I mean, we finally have an opportunity to
there it is
to change the course of things.
Yes, the opportunity. That's it. The opportunity is here, and if people want the change, they need to take the cynicism that's kept them at home on election day in the past and channel that and turn it into energy to vote for me, because I will bring new ideas. I will bring fresh perspectives, and I'm just one of us. I'm not a career politician that's done this their whole life. I don't have any ties to anybody. I don't have really any agendas of my own or any further aspirations in the political spirit. I'm a resident for 3 decades of the city of Bloomington, and that's a major reason why I wanted to run, because I feel like the person who is mayor should be that person,
right,
and be the voice for other citizens of Bloomington.
And not at the mayoral level necessarily, but certainly at the Bloomington City Council level, we have seen our politicians use Bloomington as a stepping stone. It seems to me that a lot of people do have further aspirations politically. It's not that you don't have a policy agenda of your own. It's that you don't have an agenda to use this as
exactly.
I'm going to be the next governor or something like that.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Is that what we're telling people?
That's what we're telling people. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
I've never held a city office, but now I want to get involved, and I'm the type of person that when I set my mind to something, I don't just go half in. So I'm really taking this responsibility seriously, even just running for this elite position in the city of Bloomington. I'm doing a ton of research, again, surrounding myself with really good, knowledgeable people, because I don't know everything.
Of course.
So I need to take that feedback and absorb it, and then analyze it using common sense to figure out what I feel would be the best stance and the best motion on these issues, and that's what I'm doing.
What has the campaign process been like? How have you kind of learned about that on the fly? It's certainly a little bit different than running a business. What are some big takeaways you've gotten so far from campaigning in the city of Bloomington?
It's been a whirlwind. You're kind of thrown into the fire and stepping out of your comfort zone. I'm the type of person that I like to put myself outside of my comfort zone. Every few years just to sort of feel alive again.
Sure.
But it's been very educational. I've learned a ton about how the city operates, about what people think and feel, and there's the main city issues that are going on. But like you said before, people are really concerned about very, very micro things that affect their day-to-day life. So it's been really fun to talk to walk through neighborhoods and talk to residents about what they love about Bloomington and what kind of irks them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not a huge thing like a water park.
Right.
Sometimes it's something as small as there's a crack on my curb, that the city hasn't fixed in 15 years.
Sure.
So it's been really educational to see that spectrum of what people actually are concerned about and care about. Mm-hmm. And I think being in tune with that, we're not going to fix every cracked curb in one day, but being in tune with that as a member of city council or as mayor or just as an involved person in city government will serve bigger issues well.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, even the cracked curb thing, obviously as mayor, there's a lot of blocking and tackling that happens. There's a lot of day-to-day things in making sure that mail goes out, whatever it might be, just the little things that we're talking about. And the mail thing was a bad example because that's the federal government. But really, Ryan, as mayor, you also have this kind of bully pulpit, and I say that, I don't mean to say it lightly, but you have the ability to set the agenda and set the stage for what the city believes, what the philosophy of the city council is, what gets talked about, what doesn't get talked about. And it's a nonpartisan position, but what I'm wondering is what drives you philosophically? What drives you politically? How do you think about issues? We have the frame of mind that you're a business owner. You've done really well with financial management. You've grown some companies. But in general, what do you believe about the role of government?
I am conservative, obviously. I'm the Republican recommended candidate in this race. So as far as financial management and governance, I am on the conservative side. However, I'm a realist and I'm a man of common sense. And my philosophy when it comes to city government or government in general, is that we sort of need to we need to deregulate the stuff that doesn't need to be micromanaged.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of that going on in Bloomington and other cities around the Metro Twin Cities area as well. I know one hot issue that in walking around neighborhoods that people are addressing right now that I think is going into effect in August is the RV and boat parking in the driveways. Again, one of those micro issues that is really affecting a lot of people in the city of Bloomington. That's one example of an area that I don't believe that government should really be, pressing its thumb on.
And it seems like that issue specifically, again, seemingly a small issue, but that issue in particular seems to be another part of a greater theme of Bloomington just making stuff up and driving it forward without the consent and without the approval and without the informed voice of the people, right?
Right. But, apply common sense to it too. I don't think people should be allowed to have used car lots in their yard and driveway.
Yeah.
But let people store a boat. Let people store an RV. I mean, it's part of being a Minnesotan.
Right.
We camp. We go up north. We go boating. It's what we do. We have Rangers and ATVs and toys and golf cars and all the rest of it. It's literally part of our culture. And you're talking about a small issue that affects bigger things. That's just one other little thing that makes Bloomington more expensive to live in. If now people have to go and find storage for these things, and we want to make Bloomington more affordable, but we're pressing our thumbs on little things like that.
Yes.
That we should just use common sense on, and let people be who they are and do what they want to do, as long as they're not overstepping to an exaggerated stance.
Talking about your experience from when you were a kid to now in Bloomington and how the city has changed, on a similar note, Ryan, how have things changed as a business owner? You've been a business owner for a while. You've been an entrepreneur for a while. What do things look like from the small business landscape, at least in your eyes? I think that piece of your experience is very attractive to a lot of people. Has it got, from a regulatory standpoint, from a tax standpoint, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? What do you face on a day-to-day basis as a business owner?
Well, I think when you look at that issue, you have to boil it up to the next level. You know, what people don't realize is a small business owner generally isn't going to be owning the property that they're operating their business in, right? It's going to be managed by a larger property management company or a larger development company that owns that building. And I think the regulation really occurs to a high degree at that level, but it trickles down and affects, you know, the little guys like me.
Right.
You know, rent is very high for old, outdated, dilapidated, you know, office space. And property managers and building owners are really not incentivized to provide, you know, leasehold improvement help to their tenants. I just went through it. I funded my own remodel of a space that hasn't been touched since probably 1986.
Right.
As far as carpet, paint, everything like that.
And specifically with the landowner, then what you're saying is there is actually not benefits built into them reinvesting in their property as there would be in other cities.
Exactly. So it makes it more expensive and harder for, you know, the little guys like me, or small businesses that are upstarts and, you know, they want to exist in Bloomington. It's just very hard because it's very expensive and the facilities are getting old and they're not being maintained.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest thing that I've realized. I have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs and that have started their own businesses, and, you know, they go elsewhere. And I think we need to make the city of Bloomington more open for business again. Don't make it harder on these people. Make it easier. Get more businesses in here. Let's raise the tax bases of Bloomington as much as we can. That's good for everybody, right?
Right.
Let's keep those tax dollars within the borders of the city of Bloomington. You know, a big thing that comes up when I talk to people is when I want to go out with my kids and family and or my friends and be entertained. That doesn't happen for us in Bloomington.
It's hard.
We're driving down south of the river to Burnsville, or we're going hanging out in Uptown or something like that, where, you know, Bloomington really needs to do a better job of having things for people to do. You know, the Mall of America is for tourists.
Yes.
Everyone that lives here, you know, avoids the mall like the plague. I feel like it's going to be the
My
same.
wife and I do, certainly.
Yep. I feel like that's going to be the same thing with the water park. You know, these are big feathers in people's caps as far as, you know, getting these things to Bloomington, and it's not all bad.
Right.
But let's look at a more micro level and figure out how we can provide more services, provide more entertainment types of businesses within Bloomington for people to enjoy.
Right.
And use.
It's even interesting to me because, again, there's a lot of reasons that people migrate in and out and that kind of thing, but I think history would tell us, especially the history that you've existed in Bloomington. You even have a brewery scene popping up in Edina, you know, right next door. And
great brewery, by the way.
it is a great brewery, but I am interested about that, being a resident of Bloomington, loving the city in the community that I live in too, Ryan. What are some levers that we can pull at the city level to make it a bit more attractive? What are some ideas that you have to that end?
Again, I think from the top level, you have to incentivize the developers and the property managers to be able to work with their tenants to improve their spaces, to lower rent. That's the number one. Also, I've recently there's been a couple businesses, restaurants that have opened up in the city of Bloomington. That you know, the process of going through that took so long, and there were so many hoops and red tape with the city that became expensive to the extent of, and I won't be specific with these businesses,
Sure.
but to the extent of a couple of them were to the point where they didn't even want to continue down this path and go through the process. They wanted to take a hike, or financially they couldn't do it anymore because all of the the additional upkeep that they needed to do or infrastructure that they needed to put in before they could open their doors, according to the city, became too expensive. So they almost had no choice. You know, some of them came in and got more funding, and now they exist. But other people would just leave because they're forced to.
Very briefly, I wanted to touch on one issue that you mentioned earlier on, and that's that affordable housing issue. It seems like an issue that's happening in many cities. How do you tackle that issue? Because it's something that I hear about all the time and gets brought up quite a bit. How does Mayor Ryan Kulka, tackle that issue?
That's an issue with a lot of moving parts and a lot of levers. And I think affordable housing is one spoke of a larger wheel that I call affordable living.
Sure.
But as far as affordable housing goes, and one thing that's being implemented in the city right now is this sort of ordinance on new developments and new construction that I believe the number's 9 or 10% mandate for affordable housing in new construction. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of landlords in the city that would love to be incentivized to have more affordable housing. There's so much natural occurring affordable housing in the city of Bloomington that isn't being utilized because it's all new development.
Sure.
So I think we really need to work together with the landlords and the developers that have built this city in the past and incentivize them to take more affordable housing. And that's one just low-hanging fruit that you can do right now instead of having to build all of these new construction and big buildings and add to the population of the city. In the 2040 comp plan, Bloomington's talking about adding another 1,000 units of affordable living in the city. Well, at 10%, now you got to build 10,000 units to get 1,000 of affordable housing units. At 2 or 3 people per unit, we're talking about expanding Bloomington by 30 or 40,000 people in that amount of time.
Right. Adding another third, of the population to the city.
Right. In a very short period of time. And what does that do to traffic?
Yes.
What does that do to existing neighborhoods? What does that do to businesses? I mean, it's a very trickle-down effect, a lot of moving parts, but affordable living is what we need to be looking at and having conversations with businesses, landlords, the people of Bloomington. I also think, there's a lot of talk about raising minimum wage, but I feel like that's taking a Tylenol for a headache.
Yes.
That's a symptomatic thing. I think we need to be smarter, and instead of raising a minimum wage, we need to get people up to make their maximum wage. So, we need to institute adult training programs and help people with language and make the city more equitable so that these people can compete and thrive in these, higher paying jobs that hopefully when Bloomington's more open for business, new jobs are being created and we can all participate there.
Absolutely. Ryan, with the last minute here, how can people get involved in your campaign? What is the website and what is the call to action for all of our viewers today?
So today, if you're watching this video, get up off your couch and head to City Hall and vote because the primary election is going on now and it closes August 13th. So this is the most important election in the city of Bloomington in the last 20 years. Get out and vote before August 13th, and then you'll have to vote again in November. So it's a two-pronged process here. But please vote for me in the primary election. My website is www.kulka, Kulka, for mayor.com. You can find me on social media at RK, the number 4, mayor, and register for a lawn sign or register to be a volunteer or make a financial contribution. Obviously, continuing on in this process, we need to raise money, we need to raise support, but most importantly, we need to get people out to vote.
Very good. Ryan Kulka, thank you so much
Thanks, Max.
for joining the Republican Roundtable.
Thank you.
This has been the Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Max Reimer. Make sure you get out and vote August 13th. Until next time.